Hi, welcome to episode 7 of Good Vibrations, a Beach Boys program. I'm David Beard, and I appreciate you tuning in. And today we're talking with Ronnie D'addario. Ronnie D'addario has an incredible catalog of songs that he's written over the years, beginning, I think his first release was in 1976. He discovered the Beach Boys in the early 1970s when he heard the Surf's Up album. Before that, like many of his generation, he was able to watch the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show when they premiered. But you're going to get to see in this episode Ronnie's discography. You're going to get to hear him talk about a lot of his musical influences, everything from Burt Bacharach to Procol Harum. This Zoom went on for 3.5 hours, but don't worry, I whittled it down to 2. It's a lot of background on Ronnie, and I really didn't know him before we started to do this Zoom, but within an hour's time, I really did feel like it was just a couple of pals talking about their love of music, how they got into the Beach Boys, etc. I recommend that you get, in 2025, December 2025, Omnivore Recordings released for Record Store Day on vinyl, written by Ronnie D'addario, and it's produced by his sons Brian and Michael D'addario, otherwise known as the Lemon Twigs. They produced it, they sing on it, Ronnie himself sings on it. They're all Ronnie's songs, so I can think of no better way for you to get into Ronnie's music than use that as kind of the starting point if you're not familiar with his music at all. I think it's a great way to get into it because Matt Jardine sings on it. Darian Sahanaja and Probin Gregory are on it. Sean Ono Lennon is on it. Todd Rundgren is on it. It's a pretty cool list of people. And if you know any of the Lemon Twigs music, then you know, like I do, their music, similarly to Ronnie's, are great compositions that are beautiful nods back to when music was really cool, right? In the 60s and early 70s. And the Lemon Twigs, like their father, always kind of seem to hit the mark. Let's get started. I really do hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Hi everyone, this is Brian Wilson, and I wanted to let everyone know about Endless Summer Quarterly. It's a great magazine. Subscribe today.
Here we go. Take 1.
Hi, Ronnie.
David, that was a natural beginning.
Yes. How old were you? Where were you living when you discovered the Beach Boys? And what song was that? What year was that? And how impactful was that moment in your life?
Well, I remember very specifically, uh, I was listening to WPLJ in New York City, and they were playing this song that caught my ear because it had this like really unusual chromatic thing, which was the glass was raised a fire, it rose the fullness of the wine, the dim lights. I know I just sang that horribly, but anyway, it was this really interesting thing, and I said, "Wow, I don't know who this is, but they're obviously into music. It's not what you usually hear." And then so I waited to hear who it was at the end, and they said the Beach Boys, and I went, "Whoa, the Beach Boys." Who I was never into. I can't believe it now when I say it. As a kid, I didn't dislike them. I just didn't notice them very much,
Mm-hmm.
even though I knew all their hits.
Yeah.
I remember even liking Jen and Dean in the Four Seasons, noticing them more than the Beach Boys. I
Sure.
mean, I was pretty young, but then I heard this in 1972 or 71, and then the next week I was listening to the radio and I heard I Get Around, and I heard it in a totally different light. I was hearing the way the harmonies were, I found it not just like a Beach Boy, early Beach Boy kind of track.
Mhm.
I heard the music side of it, how musical it was, uh, and thought it was beautiful. And then I said, okay, I gotta find out about these guys. And so I spent the 70s. Well, I bought Surf's Up,
Okay.
and of course the song Surf's Up was my favorite on the whole album. And then I liked Disney Girls, and I saw this name Bruce Johnston, and I knew so little about the Beach Boys that I said, "Oh, Bruce Johnston, he's not one of the Beach Boys. They must take outside material." Didn't even realize that he was a Beach Boy. And then I was trying to distinguish the voices, which was very tough because they all sang in a similar style. Even Al at times would sound like Brian and Carl, and
Yeah.
so I had to figure that out. And then I spent the 70s searching for Beach Boy albums, which were out of print. So I would go to Corvettes and stores like that and go to the cutout bins. I remember getting Summer Days and Summer Nights. And I remember getting a double album called Close Up, which was
I
this
know. Yeah.
Capitol series
Yeah.
that I think contained two albums, Surfing USA, I think. The other one was definitely All Summer Long. And I started listening to All Summer Long, and I was going, oh, I was like, my friend was in the other room doing something, and he was hearing me like, going, oh my God. He goes, take it easy. What's wrong with you? And I'm going, I can't believe these harmonies and these changes. I was listening to Girls on the Beach, and I remember, this is so beautiful. This is incredible. And then when because it goes through all these key changes, and then it gets to the last verse, and then even the key changes go into another key change.
Mhm.
And I was saying, this stuff is incredible, and just the sound of the harmonies and the songwriting. And so I had the Beatles broke up in the 70s, I mean in 1970 or 69. And so then I had the Beach Boys to to get me through the 70s, which was great. So I heard all their stuff, you know, within 2 years, all their best stuff, and which is how my kids heard it because I laid them on them.
Mhm.
They got all the stuff at once. They didn't have to wait every year or every 6 months for a new album. And so I was obsessed with the Beach Boys at that point. Then got into the whole history and
Yeah. Yeah.
that stuff. And I read California Saga and uh, got into all that. Made me feel very creative because of that was basically about the Smile album. And David Leaf has an update of that book now. So can you still see me? Because I'm leaning
Yeah.
back,
Yeah.
rocking
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
um, yeah, so that's it. I was obsessed and I'm obsessed now, and I still can't believe that I didn't notice them when I was a kid.
Were you able to watch the premiere of the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show in '64?
Yeah, yeah, I was in fourth grade. I was in a Catholic boarding school, and our dorm nun would watch Ed Sullivan every week, you know. And so when they came on, that's how we got to watch them because, she would just watch any. That was America's show at that
Yeah.
time. And that, changed my life right there. I would go to every night tapping out, whatever song I had heard that day by the Beatles, tapping out rhythms on my pillow as I sang myself to sleep. Totally obsessed. I mean, I was so obsessed with the British invasion that maybe that's why I ignored so many other things.
Mhm.
Although I certainly remember the hits. My kids ask me, was God Only Knows a hit? I said, to tell you the truth, I don't think that was a hit. I mean, it's always in the best of the Beach Boys. There's a lot of songs that are in the best of the Beach Boys, but as a kid, I don't remember hearing that uh, on the air like you would hear "Wouldn't It Be Nice,"
Right.
Sloop John B.
Yeah.
so I can remember all the things that were hits.
That single has an interesting history because it was Wouldn't It Be Nice on one side, God Only Knows on the other side, and it was July of '66 that it came out. Capitol originally released that two-sided single as God Only Knows as the A side, and
Hmm.
Wouldn't It Be Nice as the B side. And while the Beach Boys were on tour, I've got actual photos of this. Some guy comes backstage and he says to them, I've got actual photos of the guy standing there talking to them and saying, "Hey, wouldn't it be nice is kind of popular here. Can you add that to your set list tonight? We would really like you to do it." And so in the moment, backstage, they put together Wouldn't It Be Nice, and they went on to perform it that night. So a week after, 1 week, this is crazy. After Capitol released God Only Knows is the A side, they re-released the single with Wouldn't It Be Nice as the A side
Hmm.
in a week. And I thought that was really unusual. It's a great two-sided single, much like Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields Forever.
Yeah.
But not. I think my Desert Island single of the Beach Boys would be "Don't Worry, Baby" and "I Get Around." It's if I had to choose one.
Great. Yeah, and California Girls and Let 'Em Run Wild. That's
Yeah, yeah. Good
yeah.
vibrations and Let's Go Away for a While. I mean, it's there's so much
I didn't
beautiful.
even know that Let's Go Away for a While was the flip of Good Vibrations.
Yeah, it's just such beautiful dichotomy in all of those singles in terms of the different types of music that are on either side. So going back to '64, when did you first pick up an instrument?
When I that summer.
Okay, is it a
So
guitar or
guitar, yeah. So I was still 9 because my birthday's in September.
okay?
And I went to Sam Goody's with my mother, which was on 49th between Broadway and 8th. You know, that's the corner where Colony Records was and the Brill Building. I grew up
Oh,
I grew up in Theater District uh,
okay.
in Manhattan, and we went to the Sam Goody's there, past St. Malachi's Church, the Actors Chapel they called it, because all the actors went there. Um, and went in, and there was a guitar hanging over the cashier uh, register, and so it was $25. So I took it down, and it had the widest neck, nylon strings, made in Holland, horrible action, and I can't believe that I got it because I still have the guitar. But anyway, that was my first guitar, and so I just started figuring out chords. I remember my mother bought a Mel Bay book of chords, which was the famous uh, guitar book, and she would help me try to figure it out, even though she didn't play guitar. Uh, so learned a few chords and then figured out other chords that I knew that I didn't know that I heard on records. And so I started playing guitar. And I remember the first actual lick that I learned playing was the Man from Uncle theme. Gung, 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 gung on the E string. And I remember the other lick was da 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 Satisfaction and Daydream, which I played wrong by one note, uh, and then chords, of course. And in those days, you know, not a lot of kids played guitar yet, so I was the only kid in the whole school that played guitar. So that made me cool.
What?
Yeah.
So you start taking? Were you taking lessons, or did you self-learn and
No,
just listen to the music?
no, I didn't take lessons. Um, I just did it by ear.
Okay.
In fact, you know, I could have, with my kids, I showed them all the chords and sort of trained their ear, showed them when, you know, about a diminished chord and augmented chord. And I showed them, you know, when you hear that sound, that's the augmented chord, the first chord in "Oh Darlin'," uh, from Abbey Road. And it did things like that. And I didn't have anyone to show me. I knew there was a chord that I didn't know, and instead of somebody showing me, I had to actually by ear figure out how to play a diminished chord because I knew that I heard that sound on things,
Hmm.
but I didn't know how to play what it was. So I had to really like work to, you know,
I'll bet so. I'll bet so. Because there's,
my mom had this little Revere tape recorder, so I used to play around with that when I was 10 and 11. 11, I started writing songs, and I would play something onto the tape recorder and then play with myself all
hmm
along.
yeah,
And so even back then, I was into recording and overdubbing and getting used to that.
wow. That's true. What other groups in that period in the late 60s there got your attention? You mentioned Satisfaction, but but the Stones, but who else got your attention?
Well, Satisfaction, that would have been the middle 60s. So in the late 60s, I guess it would be the Kinks. And I remember in that period already feeling nostalgic for 60s groups. There was a lot of nostalgia going on. I mean, even during glam rock, all that all that glam rock stuff was almost like a throwback to 50s and 60s stuff. I mean, you think of T-Rex, he was doing Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
Uh, um, so I don't know. Like I said, mainly the Beach Boys. I remember becoming a little disappointed in music as early as the 70s.
Okay.
Um, I wasn't getting as excited as except for the Beach Boys, which weren't even the 70s at that point. It was just I was listening to all their 60s albums.
Hmm.
Um, and but I still like the Kinks. I remember liking when Lola came out, that album, Money Go Round. I remember there was a song called Get Back in Line, which I loved. Thought it was a great melody. And I remember liking that. And whatever singles I would hear on the radio. I wasn't into the Eagles and I wasn't into that kind of stuff. I would just occasionally hear a song that I liked.
Hmm.
But there wasn't any one group. I mean, I was also listening to things that were kind of offshoots of the 60s, like Badfinger.
Okay, sure.
Badfinger, and I liked Gilbert O'Sullivan and Emmett Rhodes
Oh yeah.
and Raspberries and Hurricane Smith. I loved Oh Babe, What Would You Say? Which was Norman Smith, the Beatles engineer. Um, so I guess I was still into that sound,
Hmm.
I mean, I wasn't into prog rock, uh,
Okay.
except for the song uh, Court of the Crimson King, I remember liking by King Crimson. That
Yeah.
one song. That was the only prog rock stuff. So what was happening there in the 70s? I mean, what groups
Well,
were
the late 60s going to 70s, you had the Doors, you had the Moody Blues,
still the 60s? Yeah.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Then
Really into them, although I remember liking Our House. I would tend to go for the Graham Nash things. Uh, let's see. Yeah, the Doors and Hendrix and all those bands in the late 60s. I liked. That was what we all liked.
Mhm.
Um, Steppenwolf I liked a lot.
Did you happen to were you aware of Millennium and Kurt Betcher's group Millennium at all?
No, I saw Kurt Betcher's name on the Emmett Rhodes album,
Okay. Uh,
but I don't think he had much to do with that album, really.
okay. The reason I ask that when listening to your music, I hear Rundgren, and some of your stuff sounds like the Millennium, the Kurt Betcher produced group from the '60s, and I guess that's just by happy coincidence then. It's just your
He was
music.
probably into the same stuff I was into. That's
Yeah,
what happens a lot.
yeah.
You know, like when somebody says to my kids, "Oh, sounds like you were uh into the raspberries or something," which you know they are, but their answers, well, we're into all the same stuff that the raspberries are into. You know, so which happens, you know. Um, yeah, I was trying to think if there was another group. Oh yeah, Rundgren. Yeah, I liked Todd Rundgren.
Okay. Yeah, that
Actually,
shows your stuff.
actually,
Yeah.
I saw the light and couldn't I just tell you that's something anything album, but he had other things too that I really liked.
He did the
Uh,
whole first Grand Funk Railroad album, which
yes,
so I
yeah,
thought was really good.
he did. We're an American Band, right? And
Yeah,
Locomotion.
yeah, yep.
Yeah. Oh, he also did an album that. Oh, the band. I love the band.
Okay.
He produced Stage Fright by the band.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Man with the stage fright. You know, I love the band. Okay, there's a band that I really was into besides the Beach Boys.
So you're you start your at this time during this whole period, you must have been coming up with song ideas and stuff. Why did it
Oh, Procol Harum.
oh, okay. That's another good one. Yeah.
That was my you know, my favorites are Beatles, Beach Boys, Bacharach, Procol Harum, and Motown. That's what I always say, my five favorite things. And I'm sure you can hear all of that stuff
Yes.
in my songs. Um, and then I also, you know, then I also go to love things from from were before my time, like
Mhm.
Sinatra. Love Sinatra. Love Gilbert and Sullivan and Richard Rodgers and all those writers, Cole Porter. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
that was ahead of my time. But you know, Tony Bennett, I love that stuff too. In fact, in high school, I remember while kids were listening to Hendrix or whatever they were listening to, I was listening to a show called Saturday with Sinatra on the radio. It was every Saturday. And I remember hearing Soliloquy from Carousel, Sinatra's version, that I
Mhm.
thought was amazing. And the kids are into that song too. They're into the whole concert Sinatra album, which is all songs from shows, mostly Richard Rodgers.
Are
So,
you familiar with the Sinatra and Carlos Jobim album?
oh yes,
That's oh man, I love it.
another guy I love, Antonio Carlos Jobim.
Oh,
Yeah,
so good.
yeah, he's
So,
great, and I loved Brazil '66,
uh-huh.
and because all those bossa nova chord changes, they're just so beautiful. They're really great. So now that you're mentioning these things, now I'm thinking of all this other stuff that I like. But Procol Harum, the first song my teacher in high school came in carrying a salty dog, Procol Harum. I didn't really wasn't aware of them. I heard a wider shade of pale, but much like the Beach Boys, it was in the background. I didn't take much notice of it.
Mhm.
And a salty dog was their third album, and I asked my teacher about it, and he uh, either lent me the album or I bought it on his word. And when I heard a salty dog, I flipped out. In fact, I was so into Procol that they almost overtook the Beatles at some point,
Wow.
but not quite. I had to make a decision, and I decided, wait a minute, I could love both. I don't have to like. Yeah, Procol Harum was a big one for me. Yeah, I think I
Very
was
cool.
into them before I was into the Beach Boys. Yeah,
Yeah, that would have been before. Yeah.
yeah, because that would have been 69. And then I heard the Beach Boys in 71 with Surf's Up. And I
Yeah.
saw them at Carnegie Hall.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Okay.
and not the Carnegie Hall performance that has just been released,
Hmm.
but another of those three nights.
Okay.
I have on my a Memorex cassette that I snuck into the Carnegie Hall. And,
Bravo.
yeah. And you know, them doing songs from the Surf's Up album,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
which was incredible. And those were the days where an encore wasn't necessarily a usual thing that would just it's just understood you're going to get an encore.
Okay.
You got one or you didn't. The
Mhm.
Beach Boys that night got three encores. They wouldn't let them off the stage. They brought the house lights up, you know, and that usually signals everybody goes home.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't go home. I mean,
Wow.
that was a huge concert. And then I saw them every year, every single year that they came to New York. And the only time that that started slowing down was after Carl died.
Sure.
I remember going to a gig in uh, we're in Westchester, driving by myself, and I heard it on the news, and I actually cried in my car, uh, which I didn't even do with George Harrison because George Harrison I was expecting. You know, we knew he was sick,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
and Carl was sick too. But oh that, and I just went, oh my God, that's got to be the end of the Beach Boys, because that voice, and yeah, that was really sad, and you know, that affected me even more than Dennis. Um, although, of course, I felt bad for Dennis.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Really
um,
tragic.
and anyway, yeah. So after that, you know, I still saw them a lot of times,
Hmm.
but not consistently every year.
Yeah.
And I saw them when Carl was sitting down. I mean, that,
Yeah.
you know,
97. That would have been 97. Yeah. Me too. I saw that. Yeah.
yeah, I remember seeing him at Jones Beach sitting down. That might have been the concert that Christopher Cross opened for them at Jones Beach. I'm not sure because I know he was a big Carl Wilson fan.
Jeez. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, Going back to once you discovered the Beach Boys, at what point did you discover the Friends album? And do you like that album because of your appreciation of Bacharach and Joe Beam?
I love my favorite song on that album, and it's funny you should mention Joe Beam, was "Busy Doing Nothing," which is the Bossa Nova song on the album.
Yes, yes.
I love the music, and I love Brian's lyrics. They're so kooky on that, you know, sharpened up a pencil, and you know, I think that's really a great lyric. It's so uh strange, you know. Um, and his voice is great. That's my favorite song on the album. When I first heard Friends, after hearing all the stuff up to that point, including Pet Sounds and Smile or Smiley Smile, when Wild Honey, when I got to Wild Honey and Friends, I was a little disappointed compared
Mhm.
to such strong songs on the previous albums on Pet
Sure.
Sounds. But I still liked it, and of course there was songs like "Darlin'," which was great, and what's that Motownish one? Today could be a lot of fun, oh precious one, I feel good.
Aren't you glad?
Aren't you glad? That sounded like a Motown song to me. And then on Friends, Busy Doing Nothing. Now, I mean, now I really like or even love both albums.
Hmm.
But I remember my initial response. Um, but that was my initial response with the first McCartney album too. I love it now, but when what I was expecting, because at that point, like with Let It Be and Abbey Road, I was uh, kind of concluding that oh McCartney's the guy.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
Long and Winding Road, Let It Be. Get Back, Golden Slumbers. Oh, I said, oh, McCartney, when he comes out with an album, it's gonna be all that. And then it turned out to him putzing around in his room, you know.
Very simplified.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And Maybe I'm Amazed, of course, was great. Every
You,
night. And
what do you
Joe,
think of Ram? What do you think of
I
Ram?
love Ram.
Oh, me too. I'm such.
Ram,
Oh my God.
I love as an album, as a whole album.
Yeah.
Production's great. The songs are great. Even the songs that are just okay are great because
Yeah.
they fit within that whole album.
Mhm.
And I think Linda sounds great on that album. I mean, it is a Paul and Linda McCartney album.
Yep.
She goes, "Do you love me like you know you ought to do?" You know, it works.
Uh,
And some of the other things that she's on, they're a little bit out of tune and they bother me a bit, the harmonies. But they really work on that album. And I love and it got put down.
yeah, I don't understand it. To
And
me,
even Ringo said, "I don't think there's a tune on the album." And I was going, Ringo said that.
I didn't realize that.
He was jumping on the John bandwagon.
Yes, he was because remember John had his because of the cover of the Ram where Paul's holding the Ram. John
Yeah.
went self-pictured with a goat or something holding it. Yeah,
His
they
Rolling Stone interview was like, he was like the hip Beatle, which I thought was bull because I thought McCartney was pretty damn hip musically. And so John was turning everybody against Paul. And then there were all these people that took sides. It was almost like a political thing, MAGA against,
yeah, yeah.
or the Nixon administration where people were like so polarized. Like you'd have arguments with your friends, you know, people putting down Paul and favoring John. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that happens as I'm sure you're aware in the Beach Boys world that if you love Brian, then you have to be, you know,
Anti
then Mike Love is a horrible person,
Yeah.
and it's just, you know, I've never. That's the one thing I've truly have enjoyed about my fandom of any group is I'm just not a camp person. You know, when you experience something by a group, it's you're getting a recorded event, which is kind of like an audio snapshot and of a period in time. And to me, when you hear a group effort, uh, you can get into it and dissect it if you want and look at who wrote what, and you can do all that. But that still doesn't. I still don't think that gives anyone a ticket to be able to say horrible things about one person or the other, as opposed to appreciating what each person brought. And that's
Oh, yeah. I mean, Mike Love, uh, as much as he's done some pretty dumb things like the Rock and Roll Hall of
that
Fame.
that sticks to him like a fly sticks to paper. There's no question about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and there's things that are that bothersome to people, like when he's doing an interview and he always feels he's got to claim his credit for things. It doesn't, which I could understand because Brian is so a big force, and Mike wants to remind people that he had something to do with it too. But when he starts quoting his own lyrics, and it's amazing that he remembers his own lyrics, like when he goes, Chuck Berry, she got her daddy's car and she cruised through the hamburger stand now. Seems she forgot all about the librarian like she told her old man. That's alliteration. Which it's not even alliteration, but it's Chuck Berry, uh, and you know what? I like his lyrics too. He doesn't have to do that. Um, uh, and Mike Love's voice, people put down his nasal voice. I love his voice.
Oh, I do too.
Voice is a big part of the Beach Boys sound. His nasal things and his it's a certain sound. Nobody else really sounds like that.
And how about all I want to do from Sunflower?
Oh, he's got that other voice. All I
Yeah.
want to do, yeah, the mellow voice. And he's got that great bass thing,
Mhm.
which he does very well. And he writes good lyrics. The only time his lyrics turn me off is when he keeps quoting Beach Boy titles. He goes, "It looks like we had good vibrations," and whatever he does. And Ringo does the same thing. I get
Uh,
to say that uh, uh, whatever he throws in,
yeah,
do or something. And I didn't even like when George Harrison said it was you who imagined it all. I don't like all that corny
yeah,
shit.
yeah. That's when the cheese slides off the cracker.
uh, but yeah, Mike, he wrote he wrote some good lyrics and he had good ideas, like on Good Vibrations, which he always points out.
Yep.
But he always says, and I wrote, "I'm picking up good vibrations."
Mhm.
Uh, uh, and he very rarely, I saw him once say it was Brian's bass line. He had the idea. He took Brian's bass line, which Brian wrote the melody there because he wrote the bass line, and his idea was to um, have that be a vocal phrase, and
Right, right.
which is a great idea.
Mhm.
Um,
I think the bass line. Brian may have had the idea for the bass line, but I think the bass line Carol Kay I think came up with that.
no, well, she played it, but Brian gave her.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Carol Kay will tell you herself that he gave her
Okay.
the
Okay. I know there
vocal
was
bass line.
I'm thinking of Little Girl I Once Knew. That's
Oh, I don't know about that one.
okay. Yeah.
Uh, I know she came up with the beat goes on. Doom, 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 doom.
Yes.
Doom.
Hi, everyone. This is Bruce Johnston. I'd like to recommend some terrific reading. It's called Endless Summer Quarterly, ESQ for short, and it's written and published by a great friend of the band's, David Beard. He knows more about the Beach Boys than we do. There's so many fantastic articles about our music and incredible pictures that I've never seen. Anyway, I can go on and on and on, but I just want to end with saying please subscribe to ESQ, Endless Summer Quarterly.
Or
Because
did it
Bruce
also?
Johnston is very talented. I don't understand. He might be the most musical besides
Oh,
Brian.
absolutely. Yeah.
Uh,
Musically trained. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and his arrangement of harmonies and things, and uh, uh, I always was surprised that he didn't write more. How do you write a song like Disney Girls and then just hardly write at all?
I
I don't understand that
I'm not either. What
songwriter.
song was it? Oh, I did an interview with him about the 2020. I interviewed the guys for about 2020, and I told him how much I liked The Nearest Faraway Place,
Yeah,
and he said,
I wrote words to that once.
"Oh no, oh no, that'd be a
But I never did anything with it because you know what? I always thought that was a great title. The nearest faraway place. That's a great title
hmm
that somebody should write lyrics to.
yes,
And so I actually did it to his instrumental, but I never did anything with it. But I always thought it was funny being such a great title and yet an instrumental,
yeah, yeah." Well,
you know.
he's what he said about that song was he told me two things when I first met him back in '94. We were backstage and there was a grand piano in the room. And we got talking, and he went right over to the piano and started playing it. I was like, "What the heck?" And he was doing a request to his own to his own detriment because I could hear the show starting, and somebody popped their head in a room and said, "Bruce, we're on stage." But he was going like he did. I write the songs. He did Disney Girl. I mean, he was just taking requests for us, which was wild. But he
Yeah.
told me that day that he got booed off stage in Germany for playing it with the Beach Boys, and
Playing the nearest faraway place?
yes, And then when I interviewed him in 2019, talking about the 2020 album, I complimented him again on it. And he said, "That's very nice, David, but it's just really not a Beach Boys song. You know, it's just it's my thing, but it's not really in the Beach Boys vernacular." And that's fair to say, but I'm like you. When I hear the nearest faraway place, just as it is, it reminds me of Let's Go Away for a While. You know, it has that same type of temperament and release and wonderment to it. It's something I really appreciate in that regard.
Yeah. Well, I even have I have Bruce. I had bought Bruce's solo album, Going Public. Is that what it was called, Going Public?
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember loving the Lindsay DePaul song, his version of it. Uh, won't you dance with me? Start up a romance with me. You know that song? And he does these great harmonies in the background. Um, you know,
Yeah.
he even pulls off that Brian Wilson type of falsetto.
Mm-hmm.
I find him interesting. Like I saw some interview where, and it was a long interview, where these guys who were interviewing him had all these early albums of him with Terry Melcher, and I found it fascinating because of all the connections in California that were going on between Dean Torrance and all those
Yeah.
guys that went to the same high school and
Uni high. Yeah.
Sinatra kidnapping and that stuff is like
It's
that's
insane, isn't it?
and he's interesting to watch and especially with his musical knowledge when he talks about Brian, you know,
Yes.
he always he always gets into the musical part of it, which I enjoy hearing, not just all the same old stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
by the way, speaking of Mike Love, another Mike Love thing I like, which people put down, is I love his like silly dancing. I think he's got great moves, and that video of him in the white guru robe, where they're some concert and they're doing uh I Can Hear Music or something,
Mm-hmm. I
and
think
he's
so.
doing like the Watusi in a guru robe. I mean, so it's like this guy, this spiritual guy that's still the Mike Love that did the Monster Mash, you know?
Yeah. With long beard and a robe. And
Yeah,
that's the strangest thing to see. It,
yeah.
it's so
You know,
strange.
when I wasn't into the Beach Boys as a kid, I do remember seeing them on TV and seeing this scary looking dude with this long beard, like the hillbilly beard.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being frightened as a kid. I couldn't understand it. It confused me. Said, who are these guys? That guy looks a little scary. But anyway,
What
yes,
is
there's a lot of positive things with Mike. Uh,
it?
and you know, he's definitely part of that band. I mean, that's the sound.
Mm-hmm.
In
What
fact, my kids were in Salt Lake City yesterday. They started their tour. And I listened to Salt Lake City, and and God, I love the sound of that record, especially when they mixed it for stereo. And I'm listening to his voice, and I love his voice on it. It's like I can't describe it. It's like even on Beat True to School, winsome loud bragger. He's like a little kid,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I think it works.
So significant. What was the first song that you wrote and recorded that was directly influenced by Brian Wilson's music?
Um, I remember when I was 17. Let's see, I was 15 in 1970, so 16 when Surf's Up came out. So I was 17 and I wrote a song that's on my first album, which is called Taking a Show. and I did a song called It's Spring Too Soon, which was a bossa nova type of thing, but I remember being influenced uh, by Carl Wilson's vocal. I
Okay.
remember it like trying to do a Joe Beam thing, but singing it like Carl Wilson. I don't know if you're familiar with the song, but it was recorded earlier than anything else on that album. Maybe because that album I did when I was 24, but I put on that album, that song that I did when I was 17. So that was, I think, the first obvious one. Um, uh, and then the second album, which was 1981, Falling for Love, there's a lot of, I don't know if you could say in the songwriting, but there's a lot in the harmonies.
Okay.
Like there's a song called Falling for Love, which actually the Carpenters recorded, but she died. Karen died before they could finish it. There's a track somewhere. They recorded the song with her
Yeah.
singing a rough vocal.
Uh-huh.
Richard thought that the vocal wasn't good enough to put out. Uh, so Falling for Love, if you listen to that, there's a lot of harmony on it. Beach Boy kind of stuff. Um, so I guess that was the first album where they started to creep in. I had a song called You Play Too Rough with My Heart, where I'm definitely doing a you play too rough with my heart, that kind of thing. Getting to that Brian. The first time I heard Let 'Em Run Wild, uh, when I watch you walk with him, that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember trying to do that in my room. I was still living home, trying to get that falsetto because I also would sing to Four Seasons songs,
Okay.
hit those notes at the end, driving my mother crazy in the next room. Um, because I was so these songs hit me so much that I don't get that. Uh, I don't know if it's when you're older, either you get too knowledgeable of stuff and it doesn't hit you the way it used to. I mean, I'm not talking about the Beach Boys. I mean music in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, whether it's you're so aware now of what people are doing with their chords, but when you first hear it, you go, oh, that's new to me.
Hmm.
That and doesn't make it any less great. Um, but I'm rambling now. I'm losing. Oh, what were there? I'm trying to think of other songs.
You covered Caroline, no?
Yeah, yeah. There was That's right. That's right. That was with my friend who played violin.
Okay.
Yeah, we did an instrumental of it, and we did harmonies in the beginning, which I wanted to do harmonies on a song that the Beach Boys wrote but didn't do harmonies on. Then later on, when they did that Nashville album, they did pretty much what we did. They
Yeah.
did the harmonies later. Um, but I'm trying to think of original song. Well, one of the most obvious songs that are definitely Beach Boys was a song I wrote called "Don't Wait for Yesterday." Do you know that one?
Yes, I listened to that. Yeah.
That and we had my kids and I are coming out with an album in the fall that the kids wanted to do a tribute to my songwriting.
I saw that. Oh,
Yeah, so they recorded all songs that I've written, and we got Matt Jardine to sing on "Don't Wait for Yesterday,"
fantastic.
and Todd Rundgren sings on a song called "I See the Patterns," which is more of a backrackish type thing,
Okay.
and uh, Sean Lennon sings on a song, and Matt DeMarco, and the kids do a lot of my songs. So it's
Hmm.
like Lemon Twigs do this, and I even do a couple of songs where they're playing and singing with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a song called "A Very Short Dream," where any song that you hear more than two or three-part harmony, which would be more like the standard pop sound, like
Yeah.
two-part, like Beatles or Badfinger or whatever, or any normal group. Whenever you hear a full harmony, four-part, and even with a baritone part, a bass part, which really fills it out, Mike's part, that's, getting into the Beach Boys sound. Um, I mean, I try to, I'm definitely influenced by them in the production and in the songwriting, but I try to, uh, and the kids do too. I try not to, if I hear any of their melodies coming in, I discard it. I don't mind the productions,
Hmm.
because that's what producing is really, is you hear productions and you know, like Brian hears Spectre, he tries to do Spectre,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, and and he hears the Four Freshmen, and he tries to do the Four Freshmen. He hears Chuck Berry. I mean, his influences are obvious. He
Yeah.
puts three influences together. But as long as you don't rip off an actual, two-bar or four-bar melody, I'm very conscious of that.
Okay.
If I hear that in somebody else's song, I just go, you know, I know where that came from. But anyway, I'm rambling again. But I wish I had the albums in front of me. I tell you specifically.
Well, there's you earlier mentioned how you were self-taught. I'm curious
Yeah.
because Danny Hutton talked about this the other day with me. That one of the things that he really liked about Brian is it didn't, and something he did as a songwriter as well, was he didn't really follow the rules, right?
Mm,
Because if you're trained, like say, like Bruce was trained, you're
mm,
kind of your mind and your approach, and I don't know if Bruce does it this way, but many people who are trained, then when they are songwriters, they kind of follow the rules. And
mm,
you can tell that Brian never followed any rules. What I heard in your music was kind of the same thing. That there aren't rules necessarily being followed. There's obviously strong song structure, verse, chorus, those types of things. But in terms of the music and the way that you perform the music, the way that it's recorded and presented, doesn't seem to. When I listened to it, that was kind of the one of the joyful things I noticed right away in listening to your stuff. And I listened to at least three albums while I was working at the computer. I just started letting them play. It doesn't strike me as is following anything in particular. Is that an accurate assessment?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I know there's rules like I don't even know what the rule is, but it's something about you never put the a certain note. I don't know if it's the third, the fifth, or the one, or on top, or something like that. And I never dealt with that. I would always arrange my harmonies that the highest note that I could hit would go on top. I don't care if it was the third, the fifth, or the one, um, or the six, or the nine for that example, or for that matter, or the major
Uh-huh.
seven. Um, I would know that if I tried it and it sounded wrong, that I would change it, and maybe that was a rule that I was breaking. But I would know it naturally,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, or the lowest note I could hit, whatever. Um, because I usually did everything myself. A lot of the productions had to do with the equipment I had at the time too. Like that first album, all I had was a 4-track.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
I put a
Yeah.
$15 Lafayette mic on a drum kit, the whole kit.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, I didn't even have a mixer back then. And then the next album, I had an 8-track, an 80-8, so that gave me more tracks. And finally, now with digital, I have endless tracks.
Yeah. Right.
So easy. It's funny because I like digital and my kids like analog. You'd think it would be the other way around. But
That speaks to the type of music that they're doing in a
yeah,
sense.
well, that their favorite stuff was done in analog, and I say to them, yeah, but couldn't they have done that stuff on digital too? Oh, same. It's not the same. And I go, well, listen, I've recorded so many years with analog, and it was such a pain in the ass trying to afford the equipment, getting rid of, dealing with hiss, dealing with not enough tracks. And so and it's cheaper for me. They have a 24 track and a 16 track in their studio. They had a 24 track reel to reel, and they decided, you know what? We want a 16 track. I said, so you want less tracks? And I said, yeah. I mean, if Sgt. Pepper is not on a 4 track, I'd say it was not on 2 4 tracks. But yes, you can't argue with results because they have great results. They stuff sounds great, and they don't seem limited. And that was one of the reasons why they wanted to do my songs, which was like 6 years ago. It's taken a long time to do this album because they're so busy. It was their idea to begin with, and they wanted to do my stuff on analog, and they wanted to play on it.
Yeah.
There were some songs where I would use a program drum,
Sure.
and some that I actually play drums on, and they wanted to have real drums on everything, and they were very enthusiastic, and they said, "What songs do you have? What new songs?" I said, "You know, for the first time in my life, I've actually recorded everything I've written, so I don't have any new songs at this moment." And then I would go back and I said, well, I've got this song that I always never forgot about, that I wrote when I was 15, but I never thought it was good enough to record, but there was always something about it I liked. So we did that one. We did another song that I had done live with my band, but we never, Chuck Berry type song, but I never recorded it. So we did that one. And then they started doing stuff that I had already had good productions on. And so they pretty much stuck to my production, but put their spin on it. And that album took so long, it was like torture because they were so busy, and I was like nagging. I said, "Can we do this before I die? It's done."
Hurry up already.
And it was a pain for them too. Because they got so busy. They write and they record so much and they tour. And now they're at the point where they can't stand to do anybody else's stuff but their own now. Unless it's somebody, of course, if Elton John wanted to record something with them, they wouldn't turn
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. This is John Stamos, and I've been reading Endless Summer Quarterly for over 30 years. Damn, I'm getting old. Well, it's the best. You should read it too.
Hi, this is Wendy Wilson here, and I am telling you to subscribe to the Endless Summer Quarterly magazine. It is full of history and photos and rare interviews that you will not find anywhere else. So please check it out and know that David Beard does an amazing job covering the history of the Beach Boys. And I think you're really going to like it. So check it out. Take care. Subscribe to ESQ.